Hi, we're here with Jim Cavale, and we are Executive Lions Living Life on Purpose. I'm Matt Wilson, here with Andrew Wells. Jim is a serial entrepreneur. He has been very successful here in town, multiple ventures. He is not only a successful business person, but he's also a father. He is a husband, and he's got a wife that's an entrepreneur as well. With what we're trying to accomplish, it's ultimately people who are not only successful, but they're living life on purpose. And so Jim fits what we're trying to accomplish to a T. Jim, thank you for being here with us today.
Oh man, it's so great to be here, and I love that phrase, living life on purpose. I love being in between you guys. I feel like you're gonna have some power over me in this thing, like maybe some therapy, right? And you get to watch the therapy happen. So that's cool.
Well, definitely, we like to focus on people's successes, but we also like to focus on challenges that people have faced, because there are a lot of people that are out there that are watching, and they see a successful guy and they say, I'm either happy for him, but he hasn't had to face the challenges that I've had to face, or maybe they're not even happy for you because they're facing so many challenges. So, tell us a little bit about your story and some of the things that you've had to overcome to get to where you are now.
Well, for those people out there that might see people who are successful and somehow think they're an overnight success, I always like to say, my guy Dave Ramsey says it best. He says he's a 20-year overnight success. Right. And there's no such thing. And so if things are really good for you right now, they're going to get bad. They're going to be tough. If things are tough for you right now, they're going to get good. That's life. And that's why life on earth isn't perfect, but eternally it is. And we'll get into that later. My story starts in upstate New York. That's not Times Square. That's more country, actually, than a lot of places in Alabama. Syracuse is where I'm from. I say that because being down south, everybody thinks I'm from Times Square, man. Right. Andrew, I don't know what it is. But I grew up in Syracuse, New York. Always dreamed of playing college baseball. And at a young age, baseball actually almost took my life. I had a head-on collision with another young man in my Little League team, and was unconscious and deemed near death, and a neurosurgeon saved my life. I actually have a scar from ear to ear. You can kind of see it because I wore a hat today. And they took my face off, and they repaired my forehead and saved my life. So it was a really interesting experience to have at 12 years old. But I grew up in Syracuse. My mother was always sick from the age of 3 when I was 3 years old, really until she passed recently when I was 30. For 27 years of my life, my mother was sick. So growing up with a sick mother was interesting. I had a mother who every other day she would go to the gym and be a personal trainer. And she was a picture of perfect health. And then on the days off, she was in the hospital on dialysis. And nobody ever knew she was sick. She kept it a secret, aside from family.
Wow.
And so I got to watch her live this kind of dual life where it was never about her and I'm sick and woe is me, but it was always about other people. And yet she was enduring kidney failure, on and off transplants and a lot of other things. And that had a big effect on me. When I graduated from prep school, I decided to play college ball close to home so I could be near her. I went to school in Ithaca, New York, at Ithaca College, and after 2 years of misery playing ball in the snowy Northeast, I decided to take a risk, and was always a risk taker, but it was the first big risk of my life, and I left my family, came all the way down 1,000 miles plus to Alabama to play baseball at Montevallo. And it was at Montevallo where I really became an entrepreneur, because while I was playing ball, I started a TV radio network for the university, streaming more than 100 broadcasts over a year. Thought I did it to be a broadcaster, realized I was an entrepreneur. I love the generalism of it all. Setting a vision. Let's do 100 broadcasts in one season. Hired student workers, raised money, learned how to do the behind the scenes engineering, but also be the talent. Andrew, I know you're a on-air talent guy, but picture this. I'm on press row doing a radio broadcast for a basketball game. And while I'm doing it, I'm holding a mini DV, if you remember those, camera, filming the game while I'm calling it, and Little goes up and he shoots and he scores. And then after the game, I set my camera up on a tripod and I do my stand-up with my suit on, and then I go back to my dorm room and I edit a show that we stream and put on the TV network. And I loved it. You know what I mean? I love the generalism of it all. but I wasn't a broadcaster as much as I was an entrepreneur. And so I graduated from college in '05, moved up to Birmingham, built my first of several businesses. We focused on providing a streaming product for college athletic departments. It morphed into a recruiting website. Had some successes with it, but made a big, huge mistake, which was I had a whole slew of clients on subscription revenue, and I changed to an ad model. And big mistake. Don't ever give up subscription revenue. Don't ever do it. But that was still enough of a success where I could exit from it, make a little bit of money, and be able to move on to Iron Tribe, where I partnered with another gentleman here in town, and we built it from one gym to almost 50 under my watch as president across the United States, Seattle to Miami and in between. Started right here in Homewood, Alabama. And so Iron Tribe, while I learned about subscription revenue in that first business, it was called Next Specs, a technology business. I really learned about leadership at Iron Tribe because we had more than 50 staff members here, and I had to learn about bringing more talented people than myself around to be marketers and technologists and operators, and not being the best at those things. And that was tough for me. But we had some success in Iron Tribe. 3 years in a row, Inc. 5000 is one of America's fastest growing companies. Sold it last year, sold my portion of it to help my wife open up her first business. And she was living for my dream, my whole real journey in building those businesses. And it was like, I really need to let her live her dream. And so I read a book by Tim Keller, Every Good Endeavor, that really had a big impact on me. And it made me think about that right there. And I decided I'm going to help her live her dream. So we built a business called Glow, which launched a little less than a year ago and is in multiple markets now, Birmingham, Nashville, soon to be Charlotte. It's a beauty-on-demand app that women download to book hair, makeup, spray tan services that come to their home, office, hotel. And she's built a great team, more than 30 beauty professionals on the app, and full-time developer working on the technology. And it's really cool to see her do what she's doing. She's actually up for a Birmingham Business Journal CEO Award this next week, which is really cool to see. And I've launched my new business, which is Influencer, and it's a software product that helps sports teams and athletes work together on social media. I'm working with a bunch of college athletic programs at this point, and got a nice team of 7 and some good momentum doing something that's disruptive, which is making teams actually think about helping their athletes grow their personal brands so that they can grow the brand of their team. So that's my 7-minute business story with ups and downs. And I think the biggest thing, when you tell me to tell my story, is that at the center of it has always been my why, which is God has blessed me with the ability to have a lot of relationships. I'm a relationship guy. I'm not a transactional guy. I'm a relationship guy. And my goal in every relationship as I get deeper and deeper is to help people be the best versions of themselves. And I've been fortunate to do that through a business multiple times. And I've had successes and failures at it. You can't do it with everybody, but I try my hardest to maintain relationships and help people be the best versions of themselves, because that's why I feel like I was put here. And so my story has always kind of had that at the center.
This is interesting because for me, I'm actually a little bit different. So I'm more transactional. I'm trying to transition into more of a relational because I'm a numbers analytics. I see the numbers, I see the metrics.
Black and white.
Go after. Yeah, everything's black and white. It's easier that way. But transitioning from that, you talked about building teams, leadership, people, relationships, and I always hear a lot about that. But and then you hear corporate America, public companies, it's all stocks go up, positive. That's how that works. But how did you ever have to transition from being transactional to relational, or was it always relational? How did you manage that, and then how did you work out metrics?
It's a really good question. The reality is this. God has given me many things to battle in my life to build my character and to help me see that I need him. Okay, so, but one gift he's given me is being a relationship guy. I mentioned that earlier. And the way that happened was my parents sent me to a private school. And this story is really going to be relatable to everybody listening, watching. They sent me to a private school because it was where the best athletes in upstate New York went. Christian Brothers Academy is the name of the school. It's also where the best students went. So I was with the cream of the crop. You had to take an exam to get in. You had to be good enough at sports, whatever. And Syracuse is about the size of Birmingham. So there's, in the metro area, let's say 20 school districts or 25, right? Well, you go to private school, and when you show up, there's kids from all 25 school districts who are kind of cream of the crop in those school districts. And instead of going to the public school, they went to that private school with me. And so I have a personality where I was able to make a lot of friends. And I made friends with every one of the kids I could from every one of those school districts. And on the weekends, where would I go? I go back to their neighborhood, right? And I'd meet the kids that go to public school in that school district. And we'd make friends and play basketball and baseball. And before you knew it, by the time I had finished my 6th year, I started in 7th grade there. I graduated in 12th, right? I knew the whole city. And I had great relationships with kids throughout the whole city because of that experience. And it was a smaller stage example of what's possible now on a bigger stage because of how easy it is to fly places, how easy it is to connect with people through social media. We've gone from 6 degrees of separation to 2. I mean, me and you are 2 degrees from Trump.
Right.
Right? 1 degree.
Yeah.
Right? Cliff Sims.
Yep.
Right? So the point I'm trying to make is this. It's right there for anybody who wants to be relational to have intention on planting seeds in different geographies, in different political realms. Could you imagine being friends with somebody who thinks differently than you? In
Right.
different religious realms,
Right.
in different socioeconomic realms. So think about geography, socioeconomics, religion, politics, and think about places you wouldn't normally go and be intentional of planting seeds there and having relationships. And if you really have a heart, you'll end up having empathy for those different places. And it will end up creating a conglomeration inside of you, I think, that will help you be more relatable and credible in any environment, which is where relational is really focused. And that to me is where that would fix America if everybody would do that. Just go to social media right now. Everybody's hanging out with people who think, look, and act the same as them. It only makes them more extreme in that realm. So I think it's an intentionality thing, but I did have the blessing of that story I told going to that private school. And the last thing I'll say on the topic of being relational is people don't go to Columbia or Cornell, where I went to school in the same town as Cornell, Ithaca, New York, or Harvard, because they have better books. They don't go there because they have better teachers. They go there because they're going to school and rubbing shoulders with the sons and daughters of CEOs, politicians, leadership of the country and the world. That's why you do everything you can to have good grades and get into those schools. But you know what? If you know how to make friends with a good connector that went to one of those schools, you can borrow that person's network just like you went there. And so think about your network as currency. And think about the ability you have with your network of relationships to lend your network to others while also being able to borrow the networks of others. And realize that you could have such a big impact if you intentionally connected the dots through those two gives and takes that could help you have an impact beyond belief with being relational.
Yeah, I think that's, you've touched on a lot of good topics, and it's extremely important to value people. And, I definitely think that relationships are vital in all aspects of life, but especially business. Mm-hmm. And, so Andrew, it is important to have numbers that work, but, if you don't realize that people are the backbone of any business, and, whether it's your clients or whether it is, customers, even transactionally, you've still got to, make sure that you care about those people. And if people don't know that you care, they don't care how much you know.
That's exactly right. And Andrew, since you're a black and white statistics guy, let's just look at social media. What's your reach, right? Mm-hmm. How many followers do you have? What's your engagement rate? What's your reach based on the followers that your followers have? How many posts have you done? Are your posts that people engage with, or are they really not intentional, right? Like there's all this data now that's even a part of relationships. Mm-hmm. And it matters. Look what happened with the Tennessee football hire, mm-hmm. right? Tennessee went to make a football hire, and they have leaders who are traditional, we'll say, in their approach. So they haven't really paid attention to social media, including not having social media accounts of their own. So then they decided to hire a person who their fan base despised as the decision. They never consulted their fan base. They never had an ongoing relationship with their fan base about that on social, because social media is for kids. We're not going to do that. And then they make the hire, and at 9 a.m. on the day they made the hire, a person with big social media influence around the Tennessee football community, millions of followers, got wind of it and created a rally with those fans that was so strong that hire got rescinded 6 hours later. Think about that. And I know we've transitioned from traditional relationship talk to more social media, but it really is the reason social media is so successful. Social media is successful because we look at it as real. I know people say people are fake on social and everything else, but the stuff we like on social is reality, is real. It's pictures of little kids. It's a guy who might be struggling with his marriage, and he shares it on social media, or his wife is sick, or whatever it is. Like, that's what we love about social. And if you don't tap into that, both digitally and like this guy does, where I just want to sit down with you one-on-one and talk, or I'm going to go serve in different communities. I see this guy doing that is uncomfortable probably at first, right? That is what works. And you don't see it right away, which is why a lot of people don't do it. They want instant ROI. But you do it over time, and it creates a foundation that then just bears fruit in ways you could have never imagined.
And both of us, all right, so both of these relationships here were started via social media. So like we met briefly, Andrew, and then you saw what was going on social media, and you said, hey, tell me more about this. And Jim, I connected with on social media because we had mutual friends, and I see all the stuff that he's doing, and I said that this is a guy that I want to get to know because he's making a positive impact in the world. And so, through that, social media doesn't need to be, instead of, but it needs to be in addition to natural relationships. But, I think that all of this is extremely important. One thing that I want to touch on is, all right, you and your wife both being entrepreneurs, because me and my wife are both entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. And, with that...
We should start an association.
Right, we should. Casey and Sheena Bird song as well.
Yeah,
but, it's a challenge enough for one of you to be an entrepreneur, and maybe the other one is they're just raising the kids, or they've got a 9-to-5. They balance things out. But when both of you are a little bit crazy enough to start your own businesses, I mean, there are, additional challenges that come with that. Tell us a little bit about how that works for you guys.
A story just popped into my head that I want to tell. But before I get to it, it doesn't just work. It's something that you have to work at every day. And you also can set objective, intentional controls around it. And that's why I like what you said earlier about, it's not popular to say you're a transactional guy, just so you know, right?
Yeah.
But I like that you said it.
It's the only way that people understand it.
Because you were basically saying that you're a numbers guy and you look at facts. And I think that's very important. Mm-hmm. So I think with a lot of these things that might look touchy-feely or abstract, there's still a way to provide concrete, tangible control. I call them controls. Mm-hmm. I'll give you an example. At Iron Tribe, we said, our purpose is to create fitness communities that change lives. Sounds good. It was real. It is why we existed, but there's no quantification to that. The quantification was create 50 fitness communities that change 10,000 lives.
Yeah.
All right, now we got a goal that we can actually relate to business and revenue
and
divide amongst our franchisees, right? Mm-hmm. Same thing here. So we said, we're going to do this, but we need to move my mother-in-law into the house. Now, that's an easy decision for me. She takes my side in all the arguments. She loves me and treats me like a son, and we have an amazing relationship. It's an easy decision for my wife because she's going to be there to cook and clean and help with the kids in ways that my wife was doing already to relieve her of those things. And it was good for my mother-in-law with the time of life she was in. So it worked out. God is good. It's been a huge blessing. We never could do businesses without that situation, unless I guess we hired unknown people to help, and that wouldn't be good for the kids, or as good. So we moved her in. That was the first key. First key was move her in. The second key was I knew I kind of had to step out of what I was doing at Iron Tribe for Glow to be what it needed to be as fast as it needed to be based on how much money we had. It wasn't the reason that I decided to step down necessarily, but it played into it. And so me stepping out allowed me to be with her and help her. But I knew that we were going to have arguments and fights, and I'm hard on people in general. Being hard on your wife, it's going to be tough for her to separate me from being her husband. And so the third step, so first step was mother-in-law moving in. Second step was me being there to help her start it and really dedicating all my time to that. Third step was having a plan to get out. That was key. And the plan to get out came from an accelerator that started here in town that provided an investment up front along with 12 weeks of mentorship and training and help funding further for the business. And that was Velocity. And so it was kind of like June 2016, mother-in-law moved in. September 2016, Jim stepped down at Iron Tribe. January 2017, the accelerator began and the business launched. April 2017, 10 months after the mother-in-law moved in, I was out.
Right.
And she was up to scale as an entrepreneur, and she was not at the beginning. She was a technician who was good at a craft, and she was not ready to open and run a business. But we got her there, and her wiring, she's a leader. She's great now in that CEO seat. And that allowed me, April 2017, to start building my new company, which I then launched in July. And here we are with two businesses running at the same time. So that's like a quick kind of timeline story of it. But there was a lot of intentionality and objective controls, Andrew, that were put in there that didn't make it this kind of touchy-feely, abstract, see where it goes thing. Because, we only had so much capital and we still have to live and, operate our household with 3 kids. And, we had to make good decisions all around, even from a financial standpoint. So it worked.
So that's how you worked out. So you worked out capacity by stepping down from Iron Tribe, correct?
Yeah, and now we had worked on the brand the previous 8 months of the year while I was still, running at Iron Tribe. So it didn't force me to. I think I didn't know when I stepped down how bad I needed to step down to help her. If I would have stayed in that presidency and then had that going on at the same time, there would have been a problem. It would have been too intense. As much capacity as I have, it would have been too intense. So it's another thing where, the best decisions that have happened in my life, I didn't make. I would have made the other decision. God made them for me, and I look back and I'm like, whew, man, that was great. I did make the decision to leave, but it was more because it was just the right time. The company had tapered growth, and it didn't really need a president and a CEO, and it was a good time for me to transition into something else and sell, kind of like a stock.
How did you so you being a driver, being a leader in a relationship, being a driver in a relationship, at the same time you're like, she needs to develop her crafts and build that up, and you're the business guy. How do you relieve control while at the same time giving her control? So it's hard because if there's problems here, you kind of want to go in and help. But if you let it go, you don't want her to hurt either.
It's tough,
so
man.
how do you balance that without making her feel bad about it too?
Well,
there's so many dynamics here, and I'm sure there was probably some arguments in that.
Yeah, the answer is that you push, and then sometimes you go too far and you realize you went too far. She is just as much or more of a hard charger as I am. She's a force in a lot of ways, and we're very similarly wired. She's Puerto Rican, I'm Italian. So butting heads is a real thing.
A lot of feistiness.
But then she's a woman, and she still is emotional, and she still is, you can go too far and all of a sudden, she's a woman and you've hurt her, so it's like, but it's a ongoing thing, and it's one of those things that I think you push, but also me having something else going on helped me stay away and let her make some mistakes, but also make some good decisions without me to show her she didn't need me. This time last year, she needed me. Right now, she doesn't need me.
So how does that work from the standpoint of, it's challenging enough to, you have an argument with your spouse or a disagreement with your spouse, whatever, and then, you're both trying to guide each other, in building your businesses the best way possible. But then when your mother-in-law is there to see these things, that adds a different dynamic because, even though your mother-in-law loves you like a son, that's still her daughter, and it's, those, the reality is, for any of you that aren't married, realize that all marriages are not perfect, and you do have knockdown, drag outs sometimes. And, having I'm thankful that my in-laws don't live at my house. I mean, I love them, but it's, having her there, it's an added layer.
It's just, she's perfectly wired for the situation. That's the only way I can say it. Like, if my mom was her mom, my mom probably would have confronted me several times by now. And then other, girls that I dated when I was younger, being around their parents, like, they wouldn't have been able to deal with it. My mother-in-law knows my heart. I feel like she knows it very well. She knows the ways I've worked to be more patient, to be more loving. She knows that I have awareness and at the same time can receive feedback and be called out. She respects me in a way that doesn't make me feel licensed to get away with things, but feel empowered to lead, if that makes sense. And so it's just, she's been a catalyst in this situation. And, the reality is my wife she just didn't understand what she was getting into at the beginning, and she'll tell you that. But over time, she learned, and she had people outside of me affirm her that are leaders in the business community. It's not easy to raise capital in general. Right now it is easier than it's ever been. But the point I'm trying to make is it's hard to raise capital enough for an entrepreneur, let alone for a woman, let alone for a minority woman. And she is a female minority CEO. And we would get in rooms, and we're co-founders, and I know how to put the pro forma together. I know how to sell the deal, right? That's what I do. But every time I was selling the deal to investors, they were asking, well, how are you going to be involved? And the answer was, I got actually something else I'm going to be launching soon. We're bringing you on to help me get out and help her. And so I had to stop going to those meetings. And so she had to end up going to those meetings, doing it herself. And that was the beginning of her really being the CEO and me just being a co-founder that helps with marketing and technology and, financial decisions. Those are really the three realms I still help with, but maybe once a week coaching her. It's a process, and we got a lot to be thankful for with how God has kind of guided it. I would just say too, I remember a time where, early on before I launched Influencer, I was out on the road selling basically off of a demo that I had created for our software product. I take that demo and Ohio State, Penn State, Kentucky, Vanderbilt, Alabama, you name it. I mean, I was all over the place, right? And I really hadn't even started the company. I spent, about $15,000 to $20,000 on the brand and on the demo and on the things I need to be able to go out and sell. And I said to myself, if I can't get a deal done, I'm not going to launch the company. And there were times where I would come home and I would think things were about to be done. You're dealing with universities and contracts going through state law and whatever. I didn't know what I was getting into. I do now. But I would come home discouraged. I mean, mad. And the way I'm wired, it can take over how I am at home, right? Kids and everything. I'm not an even keel guy enough as much as I need to be. An entrepreneur should be even keel because you're going to have ups and downs. And I work at that. It's not how I'm wired. I'm an emotional person. So I'd come home, and one time she looked at me, and she had her own things going on, right? Glow was a few months old at this time. This was spring of this year. And she looked at me and she said, it's hard enough to launch one startup. Now you want to do two? And I thought she was almost about to tell me she didn't want me to do this. And I said, well, and I gave her my feedback, and, I really think this is going to happen, or whatever. She said, then stop doing it, or stop complaining, stop not believing in yourself, and just do it. And it sounds simple, but the reality is, Tim Keller says it all the time, there's nobody else on earth that can affirm you like your wife. And so having her affirm me, I can picture exactly where I was standing, where she was. It was a very simple comment. That affirmation was when I said, I am going to do it. And, it took another probably month and a half till the first deal got signed. But it got signed before the deadline I gave myself, and we were off and running. So, there's no more powerful affirmation that anybody can have on this earth than your father or your spouse, I think. Those people can speak life into you in ways that nobody else can. And she was there for me to give me that one little bit that really helped me with my business. So
It's awesome.
Wow, this is really good. The leader of leaders right here in Birmingham.
Well, I want to say one more thing. I know we're running out, but I talked about my why. The Aspire movement is something that I'm very passionate about. I'm on a few boards, Birmingham Venture Club, Innovation Depot, the accelerator I mentioned. But the Aspire movement is a board I chair, and I talked about that whole passion of making people better versions of themselves. And the thing I love about Aspire, we basically pair guys like us with fourth grade boys, or if it's women like us, age-wise, we pair them with fourth grade girls. And it's a 9-year commitment from fourth grade through graduation from high school. And the goal is you would be there for them, train them up, not just to graduate and go to college, but to actually turn into a mentor themselves, to then, at 18, mentor a fourth grader. And we're 4 years in. We've had some good success, 200 plus mentors active here in Birmingham. And that is really how I live out my why. And like my dream is, to have enough success in business and be able to build a complex like the one that's being built in Hoover right now, which is state of the art. I was just on the Today Show last week. It's a youth sports complex, but build it in Fairfield or wherever, right? And be able to just be around kids all the time with no clear intention at all about relationships, no transaction, and just doing life. Because that's like, along with my kids and my family, where I really get a glimpse of why I'm here, is Aspire. So I just want to share that because we're talking about business and stuff, but really at my core, Aspire is something that is a huge blessing that helps me balance the tough parts of day-to-day business. And aspiremovement.org is where you can find it, but check it out. It's a really cool movement we started here in town.
Awesome.
Well, this is really good. So this is Jim Cavale. He's leader of all leaders. No, but he's doing a lot for the community. Aspire, check that out. So thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, glad to be here, and I love what you guys are doing.
So thank you guys, and look forward to seeing you guys next time.